What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Weisz.
Dr. Jeremy Weisz here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Veronica Fielding. People call her Niki. Her friends call her Niki, so I'm going to call her Niki. And before I introduce Niki formally, there's other episodes you can check out of the podcast. There is one episode with Chris Madden. He's the co-founder of Matchnode, but we talked about NFTs, the metaverse, and advertising in the digital world. Check that out. It's kind of a 101, at least for me, and beyond, about NFTs. Tom Foster, founder and owner of Foster Web Marketing. He specializes in lawyers and podiatrists, and he's got a fantastic podcast, The World of Marketing. Kevin Hurrigan is the president of Spinutech, and he started his agency back in 1996. So we got to see a little perspective on that. And of course, Jason Swank, thanks for introducing today's guest. We talked about growth through acquisitions. What's your KPI and your North Star? That and many more on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And at Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to your Dream 100 relationships. And how do we do that? We help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for you to launch and run your podcast. You know, for me, Niki, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. I know you're a giver as well. And the podcast has allowed me to profile the people and companies I most admire over the past decade and let everyone else know what they're working on. So if you've thought about doing a podcast, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com. We both, my business partner, John Cork, and I have been doing it for over a decade. And I'm excited to introduce Niki Fielding. You know, Veronica Fielding goes by Niki by her friends. She is a founder and CEO of DigitalBrandExpressions. And for the past 22 plus years, they've been helping companies with services like SEO, paid search marketing, performance search engine, social media marketing, and everything else. Her team consistently delivers results from middle market and Fortune 500 brands. They help B2B, consumer brands, manufacturers, and more. Some of the companies they've helped are Aleve, the Ritz-Carlton, the Wall Street Journal, Mitsubishi, and so many more. Niki, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me here, Jeremy.
You know, I gave you a brief intro, but give people a little bit more about what Digital Brand Expressions does.
We're very focused on helping our clients succeed, and we have a process that really bakes in success for them. So we look for clients that are highly aligned with our values so that my team feels very energized about taking their talents and using it for making the world better. We work with companies, for example, they have medical devices for consumers, or companies that are, one of our clients I'll talk about in a little bit, they are taking bias out of the hiring process with their AI SaaS company. So we look to work for companies where we're going to feel good at the end of the day for helping them succeed. And we consistently help them succeed.
And we're going to talk about kind of company perspective versus talent perspective on these topics, but talk a little bit more about the bias, taking the bias out of the hiring process.
We all like to think we don't have biases, but unfortunately we all do. Some are more stringent than others. Some are light, and sometimes it's those light biases that you overlook that are really harmful in anything, including the hiring process. So our client, I can mention them, Modern Hire. What they do is they have AI that helps remove those biases from the process so that candidates all have an equal shot at positions that they deserve.
That's very cool. How did you find them, or how did they find you?
All of our business is through referral. So in this case, the CMO knew of us, had us come in and talk with her about what we could do. We did, our basic process is really listening and understanding the true challenges of a business and what their marketplace is looking for. And then we walk them through the process, and we've been very successful for them.
Niki, talk about values. You mentioned, we want to work with companies that kind of align with your values.
the core values are we want to help other people. It's not everyone has the opportunity to lift themselves up by their bootstraps. Some people don't even have bootstraps. And so, our values as a company, I hire people who are very oriented towards working together, collaborating, looking for ways to optimize other people's lives. We're all doing pretty well. So how do we help others? How do we lift others? That's the core values of the company. And one of our core tenets is a Japanese concept called omotenashi. So part of what we do is we're always looking to anticipate what our clients in the marketplace need so that we can, through that anticipation, deliver on what's really needed.
I could tell you of a fun culture. I love for you to talk about culture a little bit.
Sure.
How can I tell that? Well, if you go to, and if someone's watching the video, they can see my screen right now, and we're looking at the DigitalBrandExpressions.com, and we're looking at the team area. And you kind of have a really fun way of introducing your team, which is, I went to this, and if you're not watching this, you can see steak, favorite food, and you click on it, and what team member this applies to. And you could say chess boxing, favorite sport, Will, right? And it's kind of fun, favorite animal, and you have favorite dessert, dream vacation, and so on. So this is just kind of, to me, shows there's a fun culture.
Oh, good. Yeah. And it's a team effort. So actually, if you don't mind, I can talk for a minute about something we do. So we work remotely. Years ago, my company's based in Princeton, New Jersey. And years ago, Hurricane Sandy took out a lot in the area, and we were scrambling. And so from that point on, I started having my team work from home 2 days a week. So when COVID hit, we shifted to 5 days a week, but we were onboarding new people during that time. And I was really challenged to find ways to have a culture when everything was remote. So our office manager, Stacy, who is Steak, we brainstormed different ways to have a culture when people are not always together. And one of the things we came up with is Zoomradery. So every week we all get together and we don't come onto this screen. We use Orbital, and sometimes we use another tool called TeamFlow, but basically they have a cartoon of an office environment, and you come into it without your mic on and with the theme avatar. So one where Stacy was favorite food, you pick what your favorite food is, but you're not talking. And then we just trash talk each other in the chat, trying to figure out who's who. And it's actually really challenging. It's not getting any easier. We've been doing this for 2 years, and you're always learning something new about people. And it's really fun. And we were talking the other day saying, we probably know a lot more about each other doing things this way than sitting in an office where you don't always have the opportunity to have a deeper conversation. And Zoomradery is not a meeting. If somebody's busy and they're on deadline for something, they pop in and they keep working, or we talk while we're doing things. And the conversation after the initial who's who, and the conversation's all over the place, and it's a lot of fun. And then we do actually get together in person from time to time throughout the year. We had a day out at Asbury Park, and everybody brought their spouses, as well as, or their partners, as well as, came themselves, and they spent the day together. We all were out paddle boating, and there's an arcade there. So just trying to keep the culture aligned with, how we feel about each other, which is great.
And so, Niki, do you do that each week? How long is the meeting typically?
Zoomradery is an hour each week, and it rotates throughout the week. So it's not on the same day or at the same time. And we really try hard to avoid calling it a meeting, but it's scheduled and people need to be there, because it's so easy to say, oh, I'm really busy, I need to do something else. But you really have to make time for culture, and you really need to, make sure everybody prioritizes it.
You use some software to aid you in that, you said. What were they? You said Orbital?
Yeah, one's called Orbital and one's called TeamFlow. And they both have their pluses and minuses, but if you're interested in the concept, check them both out. They're really good. They're really good for making this happen.
What else? So that's one thing you do to help maintain a culture, with the virtual team. What else have you found has helped?
Skyping throughout the day and just keeping it to Skype. So we've set up different groups for different people, different topics, and we try to make sure that we're in the right Skype for the conversations we're having. We don't use Slack because it doesn't, for us, it's not as streamlined. We just find Skyping to be the right way to do it for us. But people are, the idea is if it's something that needs to have we need to be trackable. If it's something to share with the client, then we go to email. If it's a quick thing throughout the day, use Skype. But don't use Skype if it's something that can wait, and don't use Skype when you can see somebody's calendar that they're in a meeting, because you don't want to disturb them while they're focused on that. That's just a couple of things we do.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. We mentioned, talked a little about the labor market, and what are you seeing? I know you follow this closely, and I'd love for you can tell people about the kind of the newsletter that you put out also, but the company perspective, what you're seeing with that versus the talent perspective.
Well, one of the things that is pretty clear right now is people across the board are frustrated. And whether they're working for someone else or they're the people who are responsible for making things happen through others, AKA managers, people are frustrated. And what's playing out at Twitter is just, literally so focused on exactly what's happened, because you have people who are very dedicated to what they're doing, and they're working really hard, they're working really smart. And their complaint is that they don't feel heard, they don't feel understood, they don't feel that their management leadership understands the challenges and keeps wanting them to, just rise up, handle it, just deal with it, and they're tired of dealing with it because they don't feel compensated or rewarded, and I think at the core of it all, understood and appreciated. But on the flip side, you have management. And if you talk about middle management, they're really squeezed because they're dealing with what leadership wants and trying to translate it to people who are tired and exhausted and underappreciated, and they're feeling a lot of that themselves. And then you have the leadership who are trying to make decisions, trying to make things happen, and sometimes I don't think they realize how much has changed for the people they need to make things happen. And work from home is just one example. You have so many people who want to continue to work at home, or at least have a hybrid where they could work with their colleagues in person, but that's not the primary way of getting things done. And then you have leadership that, some leadership believes it's working, and then others just want to be able to see people. That's what they're used to. They're used to measuring people based on what they can literally see. They haven't been measuring the right thing all along. So, activity masks as productivity. And then now you've got companies that are tracking keystrokes and making sure people are really working, and people are frustrated. Nobody likes to be monitored like that and tracked like that, so then there's that whole quiet quitting concept. And, I think the best definition of quiet quitting is people who said, I'm doing my job and that's all I'm doing. You cannot possibly expect anything more from me than what you're compensating me for. And management is just, especially with salary jobs, management is just used to pushing people and telling them you need to do more. I really need you. We're a team. And people haven't seen evidence of being part of a team when they're so easily dismissed. Again, Twitter being, front and center at the moment that we're talking.
Over the past 22 years, what have you find are great ways to attract great talent?
I think it's what I conceived right at the beginning. The whole reason I started this business was because my dream was to create a digital marketing agency where great talent wanted to come to work, do what they do, and then go home, recharge, be with their family and friends, whatever home was to them, and then come back the next day feeling ready to take those challenges again because they loved what they were doing. And I thought it was very cyclical. I also saw that doing that would attract the kinds of clients that would continue to facilitate that mindset. That was the dream. It took me a long time to get there. I knew what I wanted. And then, honestly, there were times where I just thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe it couldn't happen. Maybe I was just being too, optimistic or idealistic. But actually, over the last 4 years, I've been able to evolve the business to the point where I actually have the best team now that I've had ever in the 22 years, the current team. They know their jobs. They love what they do. They're all in the right seats, so to speak. And we have great clients who really appreciate what we do. And our process facilitates everything for everybody. So the clients really, we articulate their goals up front. We deliver on those goals. We bring in, I have an ideal client profile. So I do the business development for the agency. So I'm bringing in the kinds of clients that I know are going to be the best for aligning with us. But also we've developed a process. We used to be a retainer only agency. So if a client wouldn't commit to the retainer up front, we wouldn't bring them on. I realized over time that was part of what was creating some of the personnel challenges for me, because we were bringing on a client and, jumping in, and we didn't have a way of getting to know each other. So sometimes somebody who wasn't involved in the sales process from the client's perspective would be a key decision maker, coming in with lots of opinions, not understanding, oh, my team is truly experts at what we do. So and part of our change of our client profiles, we now exclusively work with companies that are already doing search and social, or I should say search or social, and they want to take it to a significant improvement point and then beyond. So in the past, we would work with clients. I love entrepreneurs. So we would work with some startups. They weren't set up to work with an expert team who just needs to get going and move. We tell you what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and then get out of our way so we could do it for you. And in the past, I didn't have all of that synced up. So I might have a great team at one point, but the clients were difficult. Or I might have wonderful clients, but the team wasn't really drinking the Kool-Aid. Now I've got everything aligned, and it was a matter of really understanding what talent wants and how to deliver on that as the president, really understanding what clients need to have happen and deliver on that, and then developing a process that supports all of it.
You mentioned, Niki, that you started off and it was just retainer and you changed things around. What's the process look like now?
Now we have a very specific 5-phase process. So we were doing all of this work when they were retainer clients. It just wasn't structured this way. So now projects are discovery, where we learn about the client and we come back with a recap that is real value. And the client can stop at that point or keep going. Then we do audits of their current programs, because again, we work with companies that are already doing SEO, already doing paid social, paid search. We audit what they're doing against the goals that they stated. And we show them, here's where it's falling short, here where there are opportunities for improvement. And to the extent that we can show them what their competitors are doing, we do that during the audit phase too. So competitive review and keyword research, of course. And then we come back with strategies. Here are the channels we recommend using based on your budget, based on your goals. This is how we see each of these channels interacting. So it's a sophisticated game plan, media plan. And then the client tells us, okay, the cherry pick, I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm going to do this in-house. I don't need any more help. And then based on what they want to move forward for, we reconstruct, we redo their SEO, we redo their paid search, we optimize, and again, we can stop. That's still a project. But most of our clients by that point want us to then be the agency that carries it forward and manages it for them. But sometimes we're turning it back over to an in-house team that just got stuck. Their expertise couldn't solve a particular challenge. We reset the programs and we show them how to manage, at the level that we've developed, and everything's good. But I would say 80% of the clients want us to continue, but it's all set up as projects at the beginning. So we're getting to know them. They're getting to know us. I'm really, actually, of all the things I've done in my business career, it's one of the things I'm most proud of, because it was very painful several years ago to take a step back because I wasn't happy. I had employee turnover that I thought I'm doing everything right. You read about what management should do, and I'm doing this, and people are leaving anyway. And we had a handful of clients that were just very difficult at one point in time, and it was just, I wasn't happy, and my team wasn't happy. And so I took a step back and actually spent 3 months very purposely going through every aspect of the business to figure out where the pitfalls were. And a lot of what I learned is that, there's an expression, what got you here won't get you there. It was one of those situations where, okay, things have changed. we need to change how we do things. And that new process really, really helps us deliver for our client and for our team.
It also sounds like you really sat down and thought, who is the best fit client for you? I mean, you put this process in place, starting with the discovery. So you mentioned startups, not a good fit, right? And what is a ideal fit for you?
Yeah, an ideal fit is a client where it's typically a middle market company. It could be B2B, B2C, pharmaceutical, it doesn't really matter, but they're not so large that they've got an expansive team doing this in-house, but they're not so small that it's one person doing all the marketing. They've got a team, they've got budget, they understand, and they're already running these programs, so they have real goals, and they know that they want to do better, and they suspect that they can. And again, we're 100% referral. So if somebody's told them, hey, you should talk to DBE. And we're typically talking with the head of digital marketing, the CMO, that level in those types of companies. And again, we look for companies that either through their products and services or through their social responsibility work, they're clearly trying to make the world a better place. And so, because, I know this sounds funny, but I'm very fortunate that I decided to keep this a boutique solution. So I'm very fortunate we don't take on everybody that comes to us. I'm able to just look at who they are, what they're doing, look, and isn't the internet wonderful for research, and really get a sense of the company and say, okay, and I also talk with the team. That's another thing, that they're involved in that decision. Hey, is this something you guys can get behind? Look at what they're trying to do. Aren't they really cool? We recently were approached by a company in California that's a coffee farm. And they're looking at growing their business by modeling it after vineyards. And they're all about sustainability. And so I took that to the team. I said, these people have approached us. What do you think? And everybody 201 was like, that is something I could totally get behind. So that's part of it too, is making sure everybody's internally is like, yeah, this is where I want to put my talent.
I'll walk through a few examples, so give people an idea of exactly what you do. And I know you have B2B, and we'll go into, diversification of portfolio, and then you're feeling the importance of that. But, B2B, you have consumer brands, you have life sciences, you have manufacturers. Let's just take an example in B2B SaaS. Talk about what kind of thing you do with that type of company.
Right. So I mentioned Modern Hire earlier. So they're a SaaS company. They have this AI for taking bias out of the hiring process. And we've actually been working with them now for just about a year. We started talking this time last year. And they were doing search already. It wasn't working the way they wanted it to. They asked us to come in and take a look, and their goals were to increase lead volume at a lower cost per acquisition and simultaneously improve lead quality. So that was the challenge. And what my team did is, again, our process, we got to know their business. We asked the questions about nuances, really learned what was important to them. Then we looked at the existing accounts, identified some challenges. For one thing, for example, was the keywords were set too broadly. So they were bringing in and paying for traffic that wasn't going to convert. And so then we restructured the programs, we updated the targeting and the budget allocations, and we were able to hit the goal. We're able to surpass them. And that's another thing that we do is I hire people who are very collaborative, but they're very competitive. They compete with themselves and with each other, and they're always moving the goalposts. And so we've actually started talking with our clients about the fact that, we might as well tell them up front, like, hey, you're going to be really happy with what we do. But at some point, before you probably even say it, we're going to want to move the goalpost. And that's the other case story I can share with you briefly is we work with a global consulting firm. And they set their goals for paid search, social, et cetera, at a corporate level. So all of the agencies are expected to at least hit specific marks. And my team actually, we just as an example, and I'm reading, that's why I'm looking off to the side. Last quarter, our average cost per click was 65% lower. The click-through rate was almost 7% it was 145% higher than the corporate benchmark. And that we moved the goalpost ourselves. It was like, this is kind of too easy. Let's do better. That's just how we do it. And as you can see my face, I'm smiling because it's like, I'm seeing my team and I'm remembering the meetings where like, no, we've blown past this benchmark, 4 months in a row. Like, let's just move the benchmark. That's cool. And the clients love it.
Niki, talk about some of the mistakes people make. You mentioned you come in and you audit a lot of these and you probably see, I don't know if they're nightmare scenarios, but definitely some low-hanging fruit. You mentioned too broad of keywords. What are other mistakes people make?
Oh, I'll not doing their research on keywords is another example. There's a pharmaceutical company that we work with, and they said to me, look, Niki, we love you. You're great at what you do, but this particular side of the house, we love our agency. We're not giving you the business, but we do want you to come in and audit what they're doing, because for the life of us, we can't put our finger on it, but we know something's wrong. Within 3 days, my team went in, audited, and on one keyword alone saved them over $1 million a year. It's just sometimes what happens is they're not as knowledgeable about the platforms, and they're not as detailed. They think it's like, oh, just flip the switch, do this, do that, and they don't focus. And my team has laser focus. So they go in and they find, and a lot of times it's silly things. We were working with a medical device company, and they had a nice agency on the West Coast that said, you have no business. We can't get paid search to work for you. And they were a paid search agency. And my team looked at the business and said, this doesn't make sense. We did the audit, and long story short, we were surpassing sales for them month after month, all this year. It's like every month was better than the month before, but it all went back to understanding the business, understanding which keywords are really important, and understanding the platforms and the settings. Broad match is often, an inexperienced team will often set it for broad match, and that's not good.
What's that discovery process look like? Because I imagine maybe the other company didn't do that deep research. They couldn't find some of those gems of the keywords or terms that would actually result in results for that person. How do you guide the discovery process and do research?
So we always come to discovery prepared to talk about what we've found. But first, we want to ask questions, because nobody likes the show off who comes in and says, oh, look what I can do, right? So we do our research because we want to be prepared, but we really approach discovery as, tell us about your business. Tell us what's important to you. And then we really listen, because that's where the discoveries come in. That's where you find something new, because they'll just be talking about their business, and then we'll ask the question, why? Why do you think that? And that's where we find all those hidden gems. It's in what they tell us. They're smart. They know their business, but a lot of times they forget to think the way somebody who doesn't know their business might look for something. And that's what we help them discover. I think I said discover way too many times.
Well, it's important. And in the beginning of this conversation, I mentioned diversification. We were talking about how important it is to diversify your portfolio as a company. And you've intentionally done that. How do you think about originally when you're like, you could have focused just on manufacturers. You can focus on just on B2B.
Pharma would have been a cakewalk. We're based in New Jersey. I mean, so many times over the years, I'd hire consultants to help me grow my business, and they say, you should focus on pharma. You're really good at it, and you can get so much business. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not trying to be rich. I'm trying to be successful. For me, it's a different definition of success, and that's not going to take me where I want to go. Yeah.
So when you started to branch out, talk about just the importance of how you've intentionally diversified.
Yeah, well, that was actually something I did really from the beginning of the business. The diverse portfolio was something I learned. So I had an agency, I sold it to a larger agency, and the two people who ran that agency, I learned a lot from them. And one of the key factors was they always kept a diverse portfolio. They were very purposeful about that. They're still around today. I think they're like 40 years old at this point, which is really old in agency life. But part of it is because they were very smart about diversifying and and they too were oh, you should be an insurance agency. Oh, you should be pharma. Oh, you've got this real strength. But that doesn't work in the long term.
Yeah,
in my experience.
Before DigitalBrandExpressions, you had an agency and you sold it. And talk about the selling process. What was that like?
Honestly, I know people want this to be a different kind of story, but honestly, it was, so I was running the business. We started it. It was started out as one of the first digital publishing businesses, but it was very hard to find a business model that we could monetize. This was back in 95. So what was making money was creating websites for big companies. And we're one of the few early companies that could actually do that and talk to executives at big companies. So but my partner really wanted to stick with publishing. So after 3 years, he just said, I just don't want to do this anymore. It's not a publishing business anymore. So we split the business up, and then I took the assets, which were the development business, and I sold it to a larger company. But I really wasn't in a place in my life where I wanted to shop it around. And it's just like, there was somebody who I knew, they were interested in the business. We had a long-term relationship. I trusted them. I sold my business to them. So that's really the story. It wasn't a great sales story. It was just like, this worked. So, it was an opportunity. It looked good and it worked. It was I learned a lot about running an agency at that agency. And then, I went on to start this business from there.
And Niki, for that, they wanted you to stay on after the sale.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't even remember what the term was. It was so long ago. I think it was stay a year, probably. That's pretty standard. But I was loving it. I actually loved it. I actually became the CMO for the entire agency, and I was running my division. I was very happy there. I really enjoyed it. But then, I just really wanted my own business again, and things were changing. They sold their agency, and it just wasn't as aligned as it had been at one point. And it was a great jumping off point because I saw the opportunities for search engine optimization. The new leadership didn't. And so it was a good segue for this business.
Looking back, what would you do differently with the sale and transition? Like when you sell this one in 20 years?
When I sell this business, there'll be more shopping around. There'll be more due diligence. There'll be more, that's a good way to ask the question. Yeah, there would be, and what's important for me now at this point, and I'm not ready to sell tomorrow, but it's really important that I know that my team is taken care of, because from a loyalty perspective, I just feel like I keep bragging about them because they're awesome, right? I just would, if I were going to sell again, I would want to really make sure that things were everybody individually was taken care of, so that it wasn't a stressful thing for them, as best as I could.
And knowing what you know now, would you want a larger agency to acquire it? Would you look at private equity? How would you look at the partner you'd bring on to take it over? I think
this business being a strategic acquisition for another business is probably the best path to get that win-win-win that I would be looking for. Yeah.
I have one last question. First of all, Niki, thank you. I have one last question for you. And I love how you think about partnerships and collaboration, and talk about, how do you set up partnerships? I'm sure you said all your business from referrals. And who are the best partners for you? If someone's out there listening, and how do you set up those partnerships and collaborations?
Yeah, so we do have a lot of strategic partners, and it really comes down to, do they have services that, again, because we're so focused on analytics, search, and social, right? So do they have services that my clients or potential clients need? And do I see them doing business in ways that I would call, compassionate, right? Are they compassionate businesses? Do they care about people? Do they care about the planet? I like to work with companies, strategic partners included, that could be B Corps if they could go through the process, which is really very, very, very painful, but that they have that right spirit. And so, and I look for organizations that value what my company does and understand, we're not inexpensive. We're really great at what we do, and we price accordingly. So I like partners who can, see that and help their clients see the value of that. So top tier companies looking for top tier partners. That's the alignment.
What have you seen are examples of complementary services to what you do?
Website development, email marketing, branding. A lot of times our clients are looking to shift or change their branding, and we don't do that. We're really, when the message is established, we're the ones who carry that message into specific channels. So we love to have great resources. And, I've talked with you about Rise 25. Our clients need podcasting. We don't do that. So if I can turn them on to you, that's a win for all of us, right? Everybody gets what they need.
Love it.
Yeah.
Niki, I want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone should check out DigitalBrandExpressions.com. Check out what your news and insights, you come out with insights weekly. I'm actually so impressed that you keep up with that. So everyone should check that out. Check out more episodes of InspiredInsider.com, and just want to thank you. Thanks, Niki.
Thanks so much. It was great.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I feel like $100 grand.